take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak!
Don't know that.
This is Andy Tube. In this video, I'm going to clean or attempt to clean the body of KUTTER, the Singer Model 99K. And one of the things I'm going to try as a little experiment, using my favorite cleaner that I use on other machines, the KRUD KUTTER Concentrated Cleaner and Degreaser. Now, I've given warnings about using this on black singers, and that's mostly based on what I've heard from other people, including viewers who attempted it or spilled a few drops on the bed or something while they were cleaning parts from on the inside, and they said it really dulled the finish, and they wanted me to pass that along, so I always have. And even since I started this series on KUTTER, I've had warnings again from people. And because I'm not sure that this is a lacquered finish or Japan finished or what. This is my first experience with a black singer, so it's the first opportunity that I personally had to test it. So I'm just going to go on the back of the hand wheel here and put a couple of drops, and I'm going to leave it on there about 5 minutes, which I feel would be very doable if I sprayed the machine and rinsed it off. Not that I would plan to do that with this machine, but I just wanted to see what would happen. So this is, for me, kind of an inconspicuous place. This will still show when it's on the machine, but not very much, so I figured it's a good place to try it. And I've got a solution here of 25% of the KRUD KUTTER, and that's usually what I would clean the outside of a machine with, anywhere from 15 to 25% solution. And this really, I've got some grease and smudge and grime on this machine, but really not very much because it was kept in a case. So I don't even know if I would use a 25 on a machine that's got this kind of dirt on it, a 25% solution. But that's normally the strongest I would use, so I figure I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to get some drops here, and I'm just going to put, I guess, like 3 of them here, 3 little areas. Put a couple of drops in each spot, and I'm going to time it here and give it about 5 minutes, like I said, and then we'll come back and we'll wipe that off, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, I'm closing in on the 5-minute mark here, so I'm going to get that out of the way. And I'm going to take a cotton makeup remover pad here and just soak up the drops that I put in these 3 spots, and one side, and then I'm going to kind of wipe them up maybe, and we're going to take a look. And I can see smudges and dulling, and I was worried about this, how well they're going. Let me try a different light here and see. Yeah, if I get light on it, then it kind of washes out. You can see a little bit I mean, I can definitely tell where the drops were. And it does look like it affected the finish, but I don't know if it's dry, so I'm just taking a separate one here and wiping it good to make sure I got it dry. And now when I look at it, it's clean and shiny. I don't really see any damaging, which surprises me really, because I thought it would strongly affect the finish, but apparently not so much. And that was a 5 minutes on there. So what I saw was dulling and smudging. I just don't think it was dry. Soaking it with or touching it to soak up the moisture with this got most of the moisture like the drops, but it didn't get completely dry, but polishing it did. So I'm encouraged by that. So what I'm going to do then is continue. I'm going to take the original pad that's a little bit moist with the cleaner, and I'm going to just dip it in that cleaner, and I'm going to wipe down this other, well, I'll just wipe the whole back piece here, because rather than spraying, which makes me a little nervous because there's parts inside the machine I can't get to like I can on a 301 or a 401. So this came off slightly tannish. Let me go back to my other one here and see if I can dry it good. I have other cotton towels too if I need to use that to dry it good, which I think I will. So that had more, that did have a little dulling effect to me, in my mind. Let me make sure I got it completely dry here. But I think it was because of the rubbing that I did with the cotton pad, which is very soft. So it does look a little bit dull. It does. It doesn't look as shiny as it did before. And maybe this beigeish stain on here isn't so much dirt or cigarette smoke or whatever. Maybe it's part of the lacquer starting to dissolve. So the other thing I've cleaned machines with good success is this Meguiar's cleaner wax. So I'm going to try that on the part that I just cleaned with 25% KRUD cutter, and I'm going to see if it shines it up, brings it back, or what's the story. And I think I'll leave one little area. Let me put my thumb here and I'll leave that area. Where's that spot I noticed was streaky? Right there. And then I'm going to put my cleaner wax on it here the way I normally would clean a machine. Like even after I've washed it with KRUD cutter, by the time I get it all reassembled, I've got oily and greasy fingerprints all over it. And so I always start with a cleaner wax and then put some coats of a Carnauba wax at the end. And so let me put the cleaner wax on here and see how it looks, because it definitely, let's see how it's got some staining too. You can compare the two together. They're about the same. This looks a little bit darker, this buffing pad. I just take like a waxing pad for an automobile and cut it into 4 pieces. But it's cotton, 100% cotton outside and a foam filler. So just let this glaze up. I like using this cleaner wax on machines because you can do the whole machine or any part of it that you want and let it dry. I've even let it dry overnight, and when you come back and buff it, it just comes right off. But it does work better if you do let it dry. Now you can see maybe this, yeah, darn it, I was really hoping this would show up. Well, you can see right in here I did not use the wax. But then you can see this has got the wax drying the film on it. The haze, I guess they call it. Let it haze up. And then I did not do this part right here where my thumb was. So that should be good enough. I buy these little cheesecloth squares at the dollar store. They come 4 to a package for $1, and I like to use these to take the wax off because it's real good at collecting the wax, and it'll buff it too. But then I can also buff it with a terry cloth. Let me put my thumb in the same spot and use this cheesecloth a little bit here and see what we see. Wow, nice and shiny. I don't see any streaking, any dullness, anything. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of it here. That's very encouraging to me. Now this does clean the wax, but like you know, it doesn't take out scratches or anything like that. It's a wax. It's not like a polish. I know they make a lot of other polish waxes and things like this. I've just never really found them necessary. I have a plastic polish that I've used on the paint on my 401s, 404s, the Rocketeers, the 301. You might have seen some of that in my videos, where I'll get the real fine scratches out with a plastic polish, which is supposed to be pretty gentle. This looks good. Nothing but wax residue here, so I'm encouraged by that. There you can see my little spot from before that left a little haze or streaking from the cleaner. Now I did not rinse that off with water, come to think of it. I just wiped it off. Maybe if I'd taken a damp one of those and cleaned that off, it would not have streaked. So I'm feeling I could clean the outside of this with the KRUD cutter, just on a damp cloth, and then I would probably use a cloth damp with just pure water and then dry it. But I'm real encouraged by that. Okay, so let's there's another spot on the machine here that I'm going to test, and I think I'll just use the cleaner wax on it without the KRUD cutter. Like I said, this machine is not real greasy and grimy, but the area that I want to work on, if I can get this over here better, or if I can come up a little bit, get some light in there. Let me bring the light. Let me bring the light around to the front of it here. And it doesn't do much. I think you can see there's scuffing here. This is where the motor mounts. The motor mounts right here on a bracket. It comes over and it holds the motor. Kind of sits right about here. with the pulley at this end to go up to the hand wheel. And I noticed here on the back of the upright, but all down in here, there's some pretty good scuff marks and stuff, and I don't know if it's from the motor resting there, you know, when people were working on it or changing belts. And up around the base of the upright, it's very dull and scuffed. It just looks scuffed. The best way to do it. And you know, with black gloss, it's so easy to show everything. But what I'm going to do is put some more of this cleaner wax on the pad, the waxing pad here, and I'm going to clean that whole area. At first I figured if this really messes it up, at least it'll kind of be under the motor. But now that I saw it didn't look bad at all on the back of the hand wheel, I'm much more willing to try this area, and I'm going to go over these decals. I don't see any decal lines, like a decal's on clear plastic and they put it on and then clear coat over it. These have a, I don't know, to me they're kind of painted on, but I don't know decals. I haven't done them since I had model airplanes when I was a kid, and that was a long time ago. So anyway, let's put this cleaner wax here. I'll come down here just opposite this upright, and I'm trying to get into the crack there because it's definitely scuffed in there, and there's pretty good scuff marks right there. And come over here and I'll do I'll do over these decals. And let's see up on this upright. Yeah, you can see scuffing there. I bet that's going to show up. So let me just go ahead and do those two spots. I'm really not expecting it to take out the scuffing. It's like I said, this is not a polisher of any type. Yeah, it's just a cleaner and waxer. Okay, you can see all the wax I've got here, and you can see it's starting to haze up all here and on the decals. So let me give it a minute or two to haze up good, and then we'll take another look at it. Alrighty, so I get my cheesecloth here and we'll buff off this wax, and I can see right away it had absolutely no effect on the scuff marks. It didn't appear to have any negative effect on the black paint or the decals. I mean, it's nice and shiny, but the scuff marks, as you can probably see, it didn't have any effect. If anything, it might have made them stick out a little more. Now, one thing that I thought this was all scuffed along the base here, apparently that was dirt, because that's all gone. I don't see any scuffing. That appeared to clean up real nice. It's all nice and shiny along the base. But you can see that big scuff mark right there. No harm on the decal. Let's go up here on the upright where I put that and see how that looks. Again, I see the scuffs. The scuffs might be cleaner and shinier, but the scuffs are still in there. Tilt that up so you can see that one up here. You see there's one there. There's one there. And there's a scuff down here. It's kind of like 3 of them. But the black paint itself looks fine. It looks shiny. It's not dull. So I think I could say at this point that I'm probably going to clean the whole outside of the machine with the cleaner wax. I'm happy with that on this particular machine. I don't know your machine, and if you wanted to try a cleaner wax, I'd suggest you do the same thing. You know, start on the back of the hand wheel or some place as inconspicuous as possible in case your finish is different. And there's a lot of people that know a lot more about black singers than I do. So I'm not recommending you do this. I'm just doing it because it's my first black singer. So since this didn't have any effect on this scuffing here, I get that where you can, where it shows up. Yeah, I'm looking through the camera viewer now, and I think you can see that scuff stand out pretty good there. So I'm going to try one more thing while I'm in this area, and that is a plastic polish. Now, I've never used a plastic polish, and I was at the auto parts store and talking to them, and they had 3 or 4. They had one by Meguiar's, and I can't remember all of them, but the 3 guys liked this Rain X the best, and it's really like a headlight restore when you have those acrylic headlight lenses that get all dull and everything, and they like this the best. And they said that one of them was less polishing than this, like it was very light, and this was more light, maybe towards medium, and the other one was medium to heavy polish, and the third one, or the fourth one, was heavier polish, although they were all for plastic. So I've used this to get out small scratches and things like that on my other machines. So I'm just going to try it. I don't have anything to lose here. I talked with my wife about it because she's going to end up with a machine, and she couldn't care less. She says she wants the machine to perform. She's not worried about looks. Her comment was like, she still loves me with all my scratches and scars. So I guess, I think I took that as a compliment. But I'm shaking up this Rain X as we're speaking, so I'm just going to get a little bit of it on the other side of this pad. Come on out, you. And you see that sticking out there? And I'm just going to try this area. So, you know, it's either going to make it worse, have no effect, or maybe make it a little better. So we'll see. And I'm doing a light pressure at first here. I don't see anything coming off. Of course, if it's a clear coat, it shouldn't show too much color, right? I'm just going to go in circular motion. And I guess I'll go on these decals a little bit here in this one spot, although they're not really dirty that I know of, but maybe they are. But I'm going to put more pressure on this area now. I might as well just do the whole thing like where I put the wax. I mean, if we're going to test it, we should test it, right? There's some pretty good scratches in the machine, and there's some gouges in the paint on the upright, which I know is from people storing that metal foot pedal up there, which you should never do. And the heavier stuff is not going to come out for me. But the fine little scratches all over, it cuts down on the shine, and I thought if I could polish that out, that would be great. But we'll see now. I might have just ruined everything here. See? So you should be thinking, hey, better him than me. Better he does it than I try it, right? So here's your free trial of some different products. Let me see if you're supposed to let this dry. I forget now. Apply restore to a damp soft cloth. I didn't get it damp. Or directly onto surface. Applying pressure and using a circular motion, rub onto plastic. Rinse and wipe dry with a clean paper towel or soft cloth. Rinse. Whoa. Okay. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to go get a makeup remover damp. Okay, I forgot about the rinsing part. So I got this soaking wet and squeezed it out. So I'm going to use it to wipe off this plastic polish here. To get all the plastic polish off, I guess, is the idea. I'm not seeing any discoloration. Of course, I already cleaned that with the cleaner wax. Now let me get this terry cloth hand towel here and I'll buff it up a little bit. Dry it out good. And see what we got. Boy, it's squeaky clean now. But can you see the smudge here? Still there, right? Still there. So it didn't do much for rubbing that out at all. Darn it. It's hard to say. The little smaller scratches in here, it's hard to say if they help them much. So let me try one more thing here. This whole area all in here is very dull. Okay? And I think I wiped it before with a damp cloth, but let me take that cloth and wipe it again with a damp cloth and dry it. Yeah, and I think that's just from years of fabric being, you know, fed through here because it's just in this general area, and there's actually more here than on the front, although there is some of that on the front. On this side over here, it's mostly right before the needle plate and the needle that you can see a lot of little scratches and wear and tear. So I'm going to try a little spot right here with this plastic polish, and frankly I'm not expecting it to do anything, and I wouldn't really use any like automobile paint polish, I don't think, on this. I don't know how you polish clear coat on these new cars. I take my car to the car wash about once a month, whether it needs it or not. Except in August, because of the monsoon here, I don't bother. But this is the damp cloth, since it said to get it damp. And I'm just going to try and make an area right in the center of this. And I'm applying it with a little more pressure than I did before. And I just want to see, you know, is that going to really get some of the hazing and real fine wear and tear type marks off of here. Okay, that's pretty good. Then it says to rinse it off. So I'll wipe that with the other side of that damp cloth. Try and get all the polish off. And then I'm going to take my terry cloth. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to take my terry cloth and find a clean, soft spot here. And gently dry that off and buff it up. What do you know? I can see a spot about the size of a quarter right in the center of that haze that actually looked like it buffed out a little bit. And I didn't use much, and I didn't do it for very long, but I can definitely see, woohoo, that cleaned up some of this haze. Wow. I'm happy, because to me that's a very distracting look here. So there might be hope for this. To take my time and do it once or twice. Let's see in this front here. I'm getting bold now, aren't I? I see like a lot of pin scratches and stuff right in here. See, how can I... You see how dull this whole area is? And it has a lot of, I'm just going to call them pin scratches right in here in front of the needle. So, very interesting. I'm going to go get this wet. Get it damp, since they say damp. Let me read it again here. Apply with a damp, soft cloth or directly onto surface, applying pressure and using a circular motion. So let me go get this damp. It's a cotton cloth on the outside. I think it qualifies. Let me get it damp, and I'm going to try and polish up this area. You know, to me, getting these damp, let me kind of squeeze it out on this towel. Getting it damp, to me, kind of dilutes it and lessens the effect. I'm not sure why they want it damp. I guess they just don't want it to like dry out. Maybe it gets hard and scratchy or something. But it's definitely damp, so let me put some more of this stuff on here. And I'm doing this by hand. I didn't do it very long. You know, there's buffer equipment, electronic buffer, and buffing pads, and all kinds of stuff that you could use, I guess, if you wanted to. I'd be happy if I could just get the haze kind of looking thing off of it. And this machine, like, it's 1956, I've mentioned that before, so it may have a totally different finish than something from the early 50s or the 40s or 30s or 20s. You know, they made this model for, I think, 1911 to 1958, something like that. 40, what would that be, 47, 48 years. So I'm sure that their finishing process changed somewhat over all those years, you know. But the dull haze, if I could just get that off, which seemed to work on the back side of the machine there when I first did this. I'm going to use a little more pressure than I have, I guess. Not on the decals so much as on this area right in front of the needle plate and so forth. Okay, take the back damp side and try and wipe that up. Where's my damp? Where's my other wet makeup remover here? Alright. This has been kind of interesting to me, not knowing what to expect with these black coated machines. But that definitely removed the hazing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you. What good is a video? I mean, you can see the difference more between here and here. This is where I polished it with the plastic polish, and this is where I didn't. And over here is where I didn't, but I can't get the light to show any of that very good. Well, that kind of shows up the hazing here and here, and this is more shiny. So I think I'm going to spend an evening with this plastic polish and go over especially the bed with this plastic polish. The upright and the arm looks pretty good to me. I've got some scuffs, minor scuffing here and there, and I thought I'd have more here because everybody grabs it like this when they move the machine, right? But when I went to get this pad damp, I remembered that once before I saw a video on YouTube about this NOVUS fine scratch removing restores original appearance to plastics, and the fellow had polished a motor housing on the back of a black Singer with it. And I think he polished it 2 or 3 times, he said, and wow, did it look great. So I ordered this little bottle of the number 2. It comes in 3 grits, I guess I would say, like number 1, 2, and 3. I think 3 is the finest. 1 is kind of like their cleaner, 2 is the scratch remover, and 3 is supposed to be even softer, like maybe a polisher. But it was kind of pricey just for this little bottle, and I used it on my beige Singers and one of the blue or turquoise ones, and it worked okay. But for the price, I didn't think it was any better than the Rain X. But I'm going to try it on this other area of hazing here and see if it makes it look any different than the Rain X. Whoops. Than the Rain X did here. Shake well. Remove surface dust. Apply polish in a circular motion until dry. Buff with a clean cloth. Hey, no water. How about that? Let me get another polisher. Sorry, what I meant was a polish pad. I have a fresh one here. So I'm going to try a little area with this just to see. I think this was like $6, the Rain X, and I think this was 12. And it's like 2 ounces versus 5 ounces. So it's kind of pricey, but $12 to like do a whole machine, it might be worth it. Let me shake this good, and I'll put a little bit on here. Come on, you. Oh, the tip is dried up, so let me just open it up, and maybe I'll squeeze a little bit of it out on this cloth here. Whoop! A little bit, Andrew. That's what my parents called me when I was in trouble. Otherwise it was Andy. But if it was Andrew, uh-oh, I was in trouble. And I heard that a lot growing up. Okay. So this is a beige color to begin with, unlike the other. And I'm just going to put it on here in a circular motion, like they suggest. And then I'm going to buff it off with a soft cloth. And I'm going to see how that compares to the Rain X. I wonder if they make little buffing pads like this for Dremel. I guess you could just use an electric drill with a buffing pad. Since you don't get this damp, I can tell it kind of dries up pretty quick. Especially here in Arizona. Our monsoon season is ending and the humidity is only about 18% today. Oh, brother. I'm actually going to get this damp because it doesn't seem, it's leaving to me like a film behind. Didn't want to come off as cleanly. Maybe that's why the Rain-X says to remove it with something damp. I should have brought a little thing of water over here because that doesn't look good at all. Let me get some water. I got this towel nice and wet on a corner, and I'm going to see if I can wipe up that NOVUS plastic polish because it seemed to leave like a residue. Well, it did get some scratches out, but yes, it did, and I think you could go over it again and again. Maybe seems like that guy. Remember, I said he did it 2 or 3 times. It looked beautiful. I don't know what it looked like before, but I'm more impressed with how the Rain-X did. And I guess that's why the guys told me it's like more a light headed towards medium. And maybe that's why it had more of effect, where the NOVUS number 2 fine scratch, maybe it's a lighter polish, you know, it doesn't have as much grit or whatever is supposed to be in there to polish it. It looks pretty good though. They both look pretty good, but the Rain-X left this more shiny looking just after the one use. Okay. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to grab some Carnauba wax. Yeah, I've got this, what is this? This is Meguiar's Gold Class Carnauba Plus Premium Paste Wax. And again, at the auto store, the guy said this is one of the best. You know, some of it's just a matter of brand, like Mother's brand they like, and this they like. So I just grabbed this. But I think you can put Carnauba wax on just about anything. You know, I've waxed wood furniture in the house with this, and it's come out very pretty. So I'm just going to get a little bit of the wax on here. And I'm going to put wax on this area that I polished. So what have I learned here? The cleaner wax I feel safe using on the whole machine to get off dirt and so forth. Didn't do anything with any of the hazing, scratches, or gouges. But it did clean the finish very nice. So, if nothing else, that. The areas with the hazing especially, I think like I said, I'm going to spend an evening and just rub it out a couple of times and see if I can just get rid of the worst of that hazing look, you know. Now, I've seen machines like this, and that's why I think they have a different finish, because there's crackling all over. And you hear videos like, don't use a cleaner because it gets down in the cracks under the varnish or whatever it is. And I also had some people suggest French polish to get rid of the scratches. And I tried to Google that, and there was a lot of fingernails and ladies' nails. But I didn't see that much. I'm sure if I looked harder that there's a way. One thing said it's a way of putting, what is that? Shellac. It's like a shellac finish. And I'm thinking to put some kind of a shellac on here, maybe it fills in the scratches, is I'm guessing. I don't know. But I don't know if I would want to go to that much trouble myself. This machine is going to get used, you know. So anyway, let's take off that Carnauba wax that I use, and let's see how it polishes up here. Whee! Pretty, pretty. Okay. So nice, and I know let me turn this closer light off and use the overhead. You can see all the fine scratches there, but boy, did it put a gloss on there. And now that I've waxed where I used the Novus, where I used this over here, and I said it didn't seem to polish it as much. Now that I've waxed it, it looks almost as equal to the Rain-X that I used over here. So I think when I consider the cost of the two and the job it did, I'm just going to use this on the rest of the machine. So there's my little experimentation with the outside here. If you try any of this, it's at your own risk, and you know, do your own research and stuff like that. Now what I want to do is reposition the camera and the machine, and I'm going to show you. I already cleaned the inside, like the face and the bottom and so forth, but I'm just going to show you how I did that, and I was happy with how that turned out. So let me clean up all this wax and polish and stuff and get set, and then I will come back. Okay, I'm going to show you how I clean the inside of the machine now. Now I've taken almost all the parts out of the machine, but you don't necessarily have to do that, you know, to get it clean in there. And this is how I do it. I'm sure that there's other ways, but I do put down a plastic to cover the bed, so if I drip stuff on there. Before I did the test, especially of the KRUD cutter on the bed, I was real worried about dulling the finish if I spilled some. Then I put a little rag just to soak it up if I do spill some. Let me turn another. There we can. Let me see if I can. You can see a little bit. You can see a little bit more in there. If I can adjust this light a little bit. So what I do still have in here is the tension pin release lever that's set into the machine with a pin, and I didn't bother to take it out. But you could still have the bars and the take-up lever and everything in there, and you could still you know, clean the machine in this way. What I have is my 25% solution of KRUD cutter and water, and I have just a can of tap water here, just clean water, and I used rags from an old t-shirt, some with the cleaner and then a clean one with water. And let me grab a toothbrush and stuff, but for me, for most of the area, I would just take a t-shirt, wrap it around my fingers, and I would dip it in the solution, the cleaning solution, and I would just go inside and get everything that I could wipe with this solution, all around, everywhere, to try and get any oil and dirt and so forth that could be in here. Now around this area that still has some parts, I would dip the toothbrush in the solution, and I can go in there and scrub stuff up and get the little bristles into little areas where my fingers couldn't reach. Get back behind that crank, weight there, and so forth. And then in the little areas with you know, holes, I could just take a cotton bud and go in and clean those areas good. You can see, get some stuff out of there, right? You get old oil and crud. That's why they call it KRUD KUTTER, right? And you can go down into the bushings for the take-up bar, the pressure bar, and clean out in there. And for the needle bar, because you always are going to have oil in there. Always. So, a couple of those. I'm sure that you're getting the idea here. And I do have some little bottle brushes. I still can't find them. But the smaller ones I could use on this too if it was really cruddy in there. But between the a few Q-tips and you know, if you still have the parts in here, just get as best as you can with the KRUD cutter on these parts. You know, you got your you're gonna have your take-up lever and your bars sitting in there. Let's see if I could just poke that in a little bit. Yeah. So just get a little bit on your toothbrush and go in there and clean everything as best as you can. And then take your, what I call the dirty rag, and mop it up. If you're going to have it settling in the bottom here, and just get your fingers in where you can and wipe up as much of that cleaning solution water as you can. Then you're going to come back with the clean water. So here's some cotton buds to go into the bar bushings and run them through with just clean water, right, to kind of wash away some of that solution. And go into the areas like the spring for the tension release lever there, and with your clean water, and get as much. The idea is to remove as much of the dirty solution now that you've cleaned as you can. Okay, and you can take what I call the clean rag and dip it in water the same way, and go in and get the back and the sides, any place that you can reach. Now if you watch the videos, you know I remove all these parts, and I either clean them with KRUD cutter or I put them in the ultrasonic cleaner and get them all clean and shiny. And to me it doesn't take any longer to do that, because then when you clean the body, which I usually do in the shower, you know, but then it's all easier because all that stuff is gone and you got a lot better access. And then you can take a clean toothbrush or cleaning brush and dip it in the clear water and go in and brush stuff up. Now maybe you can see some of the muck is dripping out of the bar holes and down in the crack for that lifting lever and the tension releasing lever. See, when I get the cleaner and then the rinser in there, how it's going to flush that muck out of there. Now you could even take a little spray bottle with just water and spray in here. The water's not going to hurt the outside finish of the machine, and you could rinse all this out real good, and it's going to come dripping out the bottom. Okay? And then I soak up as much of the water, the rinse water, so to speak, that I can, and I would get it out here. And then I'm going to take my hair dryer, just like I do on my other machines, and I'm going to blow this area dry. So the bad news when I'm doing a video is it's real loud. But the good news is I found on my editing software how I can isolate this section of the video and I can control the volume. So I'll take it from the normal 100% down to like maybe 15. So it shouldn't be too bad for you. Alright? Okay, the next step that I do is I take my tri-flow oil. You can just use sewing machine oil, and I'll take a little artist brush and I'm going to put a very light coating of oil on everything in here. On the back, the top, the sides, all the parts that I have not taken out. I'm going to put a very light coating of oil, not dripping and so forth, but just to protect it, especially the metal, from developing any flash rust or worse. Now, if you are going to not be using your machine for months, this is good to do. You know, Singer recommended that you take your lint brush that they gave you and dip it in oil and brush all the metal parts of the machine, so that when you stored it, it wouldn't develop rust. And of course, when you came back, you could then, you know, put a little fresh oil on it and wipe it off and oil up all the oil points and be ready to go. Now, I also put oil on the cotton bud, and I will stick it into the bushings. I got this pretty close here. I'll stick it into the bushings to get some oil down in there too. And I'll stick it in the holes for the parts of the take-up lever, just to get a little coating of oil in there too. Okay, just a light coating, like I said. So now I feel that, and of course, any part that's in there, you want to go ahead and put a light coating of oil after you clean it right away. And if your parts are still in there, you should take your oil container and put oil, you know, at all the little oil points, like the little oil ports, and metal to metal, everywhere where the instruction manual tells you to put oil. And as a matter of fact, I usually would do that first if you have all the parts in here, and then brush it around and maybe add a little more to get like the inside of the casting and the other parts that didn't get any oil here. Okay, so you've cleaned it with a degreaser, and water, and then you've dried it, so it really has no protection. It's very clean, bare metal. So that's why I put a light coating of oil on everything. Ta-da! So let me reposition this now, and I'll show you how I do other areas like this. Now let's take a look at the bottom here, and of course I have a lot of the parts out. I have one of the Pitman rods out, and I have the whole bell crank oscillating hook system and the hook out. But it's basically the same kind of deal out here. If you wanted to, at this point, I've got cloth here with a plastic under it to protect my worktop. You could, if you're careful, spray this with a cleaner, but I did not do that. I just again took some old t-shirt rags, and I dipped them in a 25% solution of the cleaner, and I just came along and wiped all the areas. Now if you have a machine that's really filthy and stuff like that, you're going to be maybe in here with scrub brushes and so forth, and you can take again your dirty toothbrush, you know, and you can scrub parts that you can't get your fingertip and your rag into. Let me come over to this end just a little bit more here, and all the pivot points and things like this, and some of the screw heads that you can't quite get the rag into. So you could give all the parts a nice little scrubbing like this, and anything, if you have a lot of grease, sometimes below the hook here you'll get a lot of oil and grease build up from people who over oil and don't wipe, and you can just keep getting fresh cleaner on the rag and just wiping down everything. Might as well get everything as clean and fresh as you can. If you've had a machine that belonged to a smoker before, you'll definitely want to do this, because the the smell gets everywhere, and you have a fan blowing on the motor, which can kind of push the smell into the area below the machine here, and then that can gravitate up into the upright and spread across the arm and everything like that. And again, this machine was in nice condition because it was in a case, but you might have a machine that was sitting in a cabinet in a garage or a storeroom, and you had, you know, spider webs and dust in there for a number of years, and you might have rust, things like that. So every machine's a little different, but on this it should be safe to use whatever concentration of KRUD cutter you want. Like on the 401 class that I clean, where those steel gears can get impacted with old dried grease, you know, I'll use a stronger, I've used up to 100% straight KRUD cutter on some of those areas, just to break down that grease and get it out of there. But usually about a 25 or up to a 50% at most is a strong enough concentration, you know. Now once you've got it clean, you do want to rinse it, I would say. So you take one of your clean rags and then you dip it in just, you know, tap water, and go ahead and wipe everything down with that to get any residue of the cleaner and the oil and grease and things like that that you got on there. You want to go ahead and get that off, and you can use one of your more clean brushes to go back over the areas you used your dirty brush on, to be sure that that's going to be rinsed off as well. Now, a machine like this doesn't have a lot more parts. Like I said, the one pitman I took off here and the bell crank housing. So if you're not the type who likes to disassemble like me, you know, don't worry about it. Get in here with your brushes and a spray and your cleaning cloths and so forth, and just give it a go. It's real rewarding, you know, when your machine is nice and clean. You don't have any bad odors from it. They run better, they smell better, they look better. So, you know, to spend like an hour with your machine like this as a little weekend project or evening project or something, it's going to be real rewarding for you. Now, I do still like to dry it. I mean, it's Arizona. I could probably, oops, you know what? Let me come back here because I didn't. I usually take my bottle brushes, but let me take my cleaner and just go in here. I think I did this before, but this is the shaft for the hook. So you always want to clean that out. Any screw holes where I've taken out bolts and stuff for the pitman, you want to go ahead and clean that out too while you've got it open, you know. And then take a couple of more cotton buds with just water and go ahead and flush that out. Now, I didn't show you up top around the hook, but you would do the same thing around the hook, and be sure that you have, when you're cleaning the hook from the top up here, be sure you have a plastic and stuff down below here, because water is going to sneak down through here and get below. Now, I'd start to say I go ahead and use the hair dryer on this to get stuff dry. And if you're in a humid, moist climate, you definitely want to do that, because when you get all the grease and oil and everything off of here on an older machine, and you leave moisture on there, it can definitely get some flash rust. And so I'm gonna clean it, and then we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to grab my oil and my oil brushes, and I just talked about this, but I think this time I'll do it. You want to go ahead and take your sewing machine oil and oil all of the points in the owner's manual. You know, you want to get some fresh oil, and a lot of times your manual will say 1 drop. Well, after you've cleaned something like this, you know, that cleaning solution is going to get into areas, so you might want to do more than just 1 drop. You might want to give it 2 or 3 to kind of re-oil everything up and be sure it gets in there. And then I'll take my little cup I put oil in, and I'll take my oil brushes, and again now I'm just going to put a very light coat. Now this is a pretty big area, so I dug out my larger oil brush, but I'll take the little one around and do all the little confined spots and areas here. And when you have this open, you can get up in here a few inches and wipe down the shafts and inside the casing. If you've watched my video like on Coco and the Model 404, you know, I usually take the body into the shower and spray it inside and out with the KRUD cutter and rinse it with the hose and dry it with a leaf blower. The problem is with this, it's got a closed arm up on top, and I can't get in there to see the arm shafts and the top of the rod, so I don't want to take a chance of, I know I could spray in there and rinse it and blow dry, but I don't want to take a chance that some area gets rusty that I don't know about and I can't see. So I will clean in here with the rags and a brush. You know, you can put a light down here and do everything that you can reach with the rag. And then by the same token, afterwards, you can come in and you can reach way up in there on these shafts and the sides of the casting and everything that you've cleaned, and you can put a light coating of sewing machine oil. Okay, so I use the little brush for the little areas, then I have a bigger brush, and I'll just be able to do the bigger areas nice and quick. Here's this other pitman up here, nice pitman rod, and I'll put a light coating here, go up in here. Now I know that this is all painted under here, but I'll still put a light coating. And some of the other machines is just bare aluminum. This machine is you know, cast iron from what I can tell, or maybe it's cast some type of steel. It's a lot heavier, so I know it's not aluminum. But I still go ahead and put a light coating of oil, even though there's some kind of a paint or something on here, or primer maybe. I'm not sure what it is. But it doesn't have to be swimming in oil, but especially on the metal parts that move and stuff, you definitely want a light coating of oil on those. And you know, if later you feel you got too much oil on there, you can just take a dry cloth and go over it with your oil cloth. You don't want drips of oil all over and oil running all over the place. So if you feel like, oops, I kind of overdid it, you can come later and wipe off with your oil cloth, spread it around a little, and just wipe off any excess like that. Okay. Now let me move some of this. Wait a minute, let me get a coating on here, just so I don't forget this pitman, because I put the clean. I had already cleaned this in the ultrasonic, but since I put and I oiled it, but since I put the cleaner on it again, let me go ahead and just get a little oil on there. Okay. Now the other area, if you have the hand wheel off, is you can get right in here. Let's see if I can lower this a little bit. Maybe I can put this up on my wood block. We'll try and get some light in there. But oh, maybe I have to raise it back up, huh? So in here, you can see the shafts in there. So you can get in there with your damp rag and your solution, and you can wipe all around up the insides of the casing, up and down those shafts, and then take your rinsing cloth in there and do that, and then go ahead and take your oil brush, and you can go right in there and you can give those shafts a nice coating of oil also. Now the bearings and bushings and everything like that, we're going to oil from the top and according to the instruction manual and so forth. But this is just another way that you can get some cleaning and rinsing and lubricating done in here to protect the metal. And as I mentioned, some of the older Singer manuals say you should kind of be doing something like this if you're gonna, you know, be putting your machine away for months or putting it in storage. You know, I know people in the eastern part of the United States that only sew in the winter, you know, when they're kind of housebound more. In the summer and spring they're too busy and stuff, and the fall's the holiday, but in the winter they break out their sewing machine and sew quite a bit of things. So after, when they put it away, when they're all finished for the when they're all finished for the sewing season, it's a good idea to take a brush and put a light coating of oil, cleaning it the way I showed you would be even better, getting all the lint out, because lint will absorb moisture and then cause rust, and the lint can get into real tight, tiny little areas and absorb moisture all summer and stuff and fall and cause rust in there. So anyway, that's you can get here. You can get the bottom and you can get the face. I mentioned the hook. If you don't disassemble the way I do, you know, you can take out the bobbin case and stuff and you can just go into the hook area with brushes and cotton buds and you know, cleaning rags, and there'll be lint in here. There may be oil from you're oiling your needle bar and stuff, and the oil gets down in here. And go ahead and rinse it, dry it, put a nice coating of oil on all this exposed unpainted metal, and the hook base and the hook shaft and so forth. And you take your Q-tip that you dipped in oil and you can run it down through the shaft of it. You know, if your hook is out of the shaft and everything. And the same thing after it's been there. If you think, well, I got a little bit extra, anytime you oil, you should mop up any extra oil, especially around the needle bar and this area, because it's just going to settle in the bottom and get hard and collect lint and stuff like that. So you should probably go ahead after you've oiled and you know, just wipe up any little extra oil. Okay, we can get this set to the back there. So that is my plan to later with Cute is I'm going to I did clean and I could clean the outside of this particular Model 99K with a 25% solution. I cleaned the bottom, the back, the face, and the hook area with it. I'm also planning to do some more polishing of the paint by just using a plastic polishing compound. Very gentle. Now I know there's a lot of auto compounds, and I'm sure that people can recommend some fantastic polishes that would work better than this. This is just what I'm going to be using. I'm very happy the way my Meguiar's cleaner wax worked on this black finish. I think it did really good. It didn't hurt any of the gold lettering. It didn't hurt the paint. It cleaned off the everyday muck and fingerprints and a little dried oil here and there. It did that very well. And then when I'm all done and everything is back together and adjusted and timed and tested, the last thing I'll do is put 2 or 3 coats of the Carnauba wax or Carnauba wax, and I use the Meguiar's, and I use the Carnauba because I read it's the hardest, longest lasting wax. So I figured if I'm going to take the time to wax it, I'll pay a little more, get a good grade of wax, and it'll last longer, it'll look nice. But I've also used other, turtle wax, any automobile paint wax should be okay on most sewing machines. And as a last disclaimer, this is my 1956 99K I'm doing this on. They made the machine for about 47 years, and I know black finishes have shellac and a varnish and clear coating and all kinds of different finishes. So any product that you would use, you should test and spot test. And my understanding from people who've been kind enough to make recommendations to me and some blogs I read and online thing, sewing machine oil to clean these black singers. Just some little bit of oil on your fingertips and kind of massage the finish and everything to get any loose dirt and grime off of there, and then polish it with a nice soft cloth. That's a very good, effective way to keep the surface of a black singer machine, not a ton of oil, just a little bit, but that's a very good, safe, effective way on the older black singer machines. Ta-da! So, thanks for watching, and I am welcome to comments and questions and stuff like that anytime. I've got some very knowledgeable and fun and informative viewers who do share now and then, and we all like that, I'm sure. Other than that, come back and see me when you have time. I know there's a few million YouTube channels and videos and stuff out there, so I appreciate it if you feel like my channel's worth your time, and you can subscribe if you care to. It's up to you. I don't monetize my channel. I don't make any money off of my channel. So if you subscribe, I think the only benefit for you is if you want, you can get notified when I put up a new video. So that's your choice. Come back and see me when you can. Take care.
Don't you give me no dirty looks. Your father's hip, he knows what cooks. Just tell your hoodlum friend outside, you ain't got time to take a ride. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Yakety yak, yakety yak.